Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a nice break. Maybe you listened to the live podcast. I also hope you took the time to tell us in Slido how useful the morning session was for you. If you didn't, you can still do it. We really value your feedback. And it is following your feedback that we set up the next events that we do. And this is what we actually did for also the event and the session that we're going to have now. So I'll welcome soon on stage my colleagues for the most strategic input of the day. We will have Cinzia Tegoni, Laura Giappichelli to illustrate the new call for strategic integrated projects. And I'm delighted to tell you that with them, there will also be Rosita Eriksson from Life Integrated Project LifeRich Waters, who is with us exactly because last year you told us how important it is to show project examples when we talk to you about our calls. So that's now the time for me to pass the floor to my strategic integrated colleagues, Cinzia, Laura, and then later Rosita. The floor is yours. I think your presentation will also come soon. And of course, people can still ask questions in Slido specific on this session. There is a session for that. Yes, Cinzia.
Welcome everybody back to this Life Info Days. We are very glad to have this opportunity to introduce you to the Life Strategic Projects. With my colleague Laura, we will go through this presentation. We will go to the next slide. And in particular, we would like to highlight once again, not to repeat what was said this morning, but that the strategic projects, they treat three different strands under the field of environment. So the sub-program Natural Biodiversity, Circular Economy and Quality of Life, Climate Change Mitigation and Adaptation. So they cover all these three strands. And they represent 4% of the number of projects submitted to LIFE, but they account for 22% of the budget because despite the small number, they have big budget, and we will explain you why. So we go to the next slide, please. So the objective of this grant is really to catalyze the implementation of a given plan, strategy, or action plan, and in particular to remove all the administrative, financial, structural, and other barriers for the full implementation of this strategy plan or action plan. And for this reason, they complement with what we call complementary measure that will allow for the full implementation of the program, which is the scope of the strategic project. The measure which are included in this grant are to support institutions and in their capacity building, and they aim to mobilize and coordinate additional finance for this complementary action that together with the grant and the proposal submitted, the measure submitted, will allow for the full implementation of the program. I stress this because it's important that in the long term we see this implementation. And of course, we have a note on the strategic nature project, which normally include a conservation measure, especially because they or when they cannot be supported by other EU funding program. And we can go to the next slide, please. So the key aspects that we would like to underline are that strategic projects, they are really meant to implement plans and strategy. And they really need to have a large territorial scale to ensure the impact that we are searching for the budget we are also searching for. And we aim and we ask for the full engagement of all the stakeholders needed to ensure the implementation and the realization of this plan and strategy. Once again, we know that our resources will not be sufficient or enough for the full implementation. This is why we ask to have complementary measures and supported by complementary funds. And we aim with this project to mainstream this life objective in other priorities and in other policies. And we can go to the next slide, please. So far we have learned that our coal is competitive, but maybe less than the standard action projects. And the success rate, of course, is between the 25% and 39%, considering both coal so far. And we see higher competition for clima, water, and nature sector. Of course, we know that this project bears a certain amount of administrative work. And this is why maybe they are also the difficult to present. But we encourage you to do that. And we can go to the next slide. As you have heard this morning, in 2023, we will admit call for strategic integrated project in the field of environment and in the field of climate, with a budget of around 53 million for the environment and 30 million for climate. We do expect to have and to grant our support to 3-4 projects for environment, to 2-3 projects for climate. And what we expect are projects with the range of between 10 and 30 million, or 10 or 20 million. So very large project. In 2024, nevertheless, the 3 strands will be open. And the budget will be the one you see on screen. So we confirm the budget for SIP environment, for climate, and we will have 60 million for the nature strategic project. And we can go to the next slide. So what are really the requirements to achieve the success in presenting your proposal? We know the effort that is required to build a project proposal which encompasses many stakeholders, which is led by the managing authority of this strategic or this strategy or this plan or this action plan. And we expect, of course, a level of implementation which is the largest possible, together with your complementary action. And the geographical area, we already said, it's a large area that can include spaces across borders, like in the river catchment areas, but can also include multi-cities, for example, under air or climate topics. And we would like to understand, and we need to understand, which are the gaps that you need to address with our support, and that can, of course, help you to implement your strategy or your plan. And how you intend to minimize them. So how do you tackle them? This must be included in the reasoning of your proposal. Then the level of commitment that we ask is very high, because we would like the competent authority to be the lead of these projects. And if this is not the case, we need a sound justification for the replacement of the coordinating beneficiary as a different applicant than the managing authorities. And of course, we aim, and we would like to see that we create a kind of snowball effect where we mainstream our discourse and our objective on climate, environment, and nature, and the different priority in other sectors active in your administration or industry, because we also target industry plans. And with that, I leave the floor to Laura, which will deep dive more on this element. Thank you.
Thank you, Cinzia. We can go to the next slide. Here I will give you an overview of how to design a strategic project. So first of all, you need to identify a plan or a strategy that you want to target. Once you have defined what is the plan and the strategy that you want to target, you need to select some of the measures, some of the actions of these strategies that you will address with the strategic project. As mentioned by Cinzia, it's really important that you identify the obstacles, the barriers, and also how you will remove them through the activities of the strategic project. In addition to this, you need to identify complementary actions, so actions that are complementing, integrating what the strategic project is going to implement. And these actions are not funded by LIFE, but they are funded by other funds, national, local, or other European funds. And together, so the complementary actions and the actions that you have identified through the LIFE project, they will help to fully implement this targeted plan or strategy that you have selected. It's very important, it was already mentioned by Cinzia, that you have a consortium of at least 2 partners. One should be the body that is in charge of implementing the plan or the strategy that you have identified. If it's possible, it would be better that this body is the coordinating beneficiary. In the next slide, I will you have an overview of what are the plans and strategies that are eligible in the call for proposal of the strategic projects. For this year, as it was mentioned, we don't have a call for the SNAPs, so the strategic nature projects, but it's important that you start already from now to put together your ideas and your project, maybe for next year. But for the strategic integrated projects environment and CLIMA, you have a list of strategies, plans that you need to review in order to see if the ones that you have selected fits what is in the call for proposal. Next slide, please. The evaluation. So the evaluation is on 2 steps. So we have a very first step, which is called concept note. So we ask you for a reduced documentation on your project, your ideas on how you will implement the project. And we will assess this according to 4 criteria, which are the ones on the slide. So the implementation of the plan, the territorial coverage, the coordination of the complementary funds, and the involvement of the stakeholders. We will reply on a yes or no. So if you will be selected for the full stage, then at the second stage, you have to present a full proposal, and you will be evaluated according to the 5 criteria that you see on the slides, and there will be a scoring system. What is important is that by the time of the full proposal submission, you have your plan or strategy approved officially by your government, if it's not already the case. Next slide, please. Here are some lessons that we have learned throughout our evaluations in the past years. So what we have seen that might be useful for you now drafting your proposal. In some cases, we have seen that the problem analysis, so the what are the issues that you are facing, the obstacles, the barriers, are not very well detailed or specified, and then we miss a bit the link between these problems and the activities that you propose on your project. So this should be instead very specific. On the impact, sometimes we have seen also that there are general statements. It's not really quantified, and this is also a problem for us in evaluating because we don't understand what is the expected impact of the project. So this is also to pay attention on. In the next slide. On the quality, sometimes we have seen that the risk assessment it's insufficiently developed, so we don't see all the possible risks, and the mitigation measures or the sites are not clearly defined. So the geographical area is not very clear from the proposal. On financial resources, sometimes we see large lump sums and not well justified, and that's also have an impact on the scoring of the proposal. On complementary funding, it's very important that you really link the complementary actions with the plan, the targeted plan, but also with the projects of the LIFE strategic project, so that we have this coordination among the complementary and the actions of the strategic project. And sometimes it's missing in some proposals. The next slide. Here are the key information. So you have all the documents in the funding and tender portal. As we said, we have 2 calls, one on environment strategic projects and one on CLIMA strategic project. We have 2 stages. One first stage, concept note, the deadline is 5th of September 2023. If you will pass this stage, so we'll receive a letter from our side that you can go to the next steps, to stage 2, then you need to submit your proposal by the 5th of March 2024. So as I said before, if your plan is not approved during the phase of the drafting, it should be approved at the latest by the 5th of March 2024. The next slide, please. We can help you with some support. So it was mentioned this morning already, but we just restate that we have a call for proposal which is specifically focusing on helping to draft, to prepare the full proposal. It's a 60% co-funding, and we give a maximum of 70,000 euro. It's open now, so you can possibly apply if you want to prepare your strategic project. Next slide. We also have additional support. You can always contact the national contact points to organize a meeting to discuss your proposal. You can look into the frequently asked questions that we have updated. You find a lot of information there. You can also look at the fact sheet that we have recently published on the integrated project. And you can also contact us. You see on the slide the contacts of Senior Life Inquiries. You have general questions or specific questions on the call, some clarifications that you need, we will reply to you. We cannot instead give you an advice specifically on your application. With this, I have finished, and we have a next presentation.
Yes, I invite with us Rosita Eriksson, and she's the communication officer and represent the LifeRich Waters, which is a strategic integrated project from the previous calls and the previous period. So she will share with us her lesson learned, news about the project, of course, and some useful insight for all of you. Please, Rosita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Yes, we are but at the end of the implementation period. You can actually go to next slide. So LifeRich Waters was the first integrated project in Sweden. So we have been learning as we go. So we are in the final stage of the project, and we are now very busy in documenting our results and disseminating our results, but also compiling the lessons learned for possibly a future application for the new program. So the objective of our project is to boost the implementation of the Water Framework Directive. And we can have next slide. Yes. So just to tell you something about how the project was developed. So the water authorities in Sweden did a thorough gaps analysis to really understand why the implementation of the Water Framework Directive was so slow. And these were the 5 main gaps that were identified. So I'm not going to go through them, but from this gaps analysis, this was really the backbone of the design of the project. So a lack of new technology. Yes, we have projects that focus on developing new technology. A lack of best practice working methods. So that was also a focus of the project. So this was really helpful to have this understanding of the main issues in the lack of or the flaws in the implementation of this plan. And now we actually have commissioned a new gaps analysis for 2 reasons. One is to understand if we have correctly addressed the original gaps, but also to understand if they are still relevant, if we can still adjust our ongoing project, but most of all, to understand where we should focus a new project. So next slide. Just one thing that I think many projects struggle with is this, to get the consortium together. And that was one of the main headaches also in our application projects. So we have 35 partners with 2 national authorities and a lot of regional actors, municipal actors, NGOs, some research organizations are also represented. And this has been a challenge in terms of administration, but it has also been the strength of our project, because this partnership represents really the main actors in the implementation of the plan. So it's been important. And to tell you something more about the application process is that each partner identified actions that they really saw were important to them to implement the plan, which we ended up with a diverse sort of wish list for projects. So you can go to the next slide. But we managed to fit sort of the different actions into 5 different thematic areas. And in each of these thematic areas, we have actions focusing on developing methods or coordinating stakeholders, but also actions that focus on concrete implementation of measures. So in the end, we think it worked out well. It was sort of a puzzle in the beginning to get this together and get a coherent project. But in the end, the different stakeholders are all implementing actions that they really believe in. So we had a lot of buy-in to the project. So we can have next slide. So we had 3 basic principles in the project design. One was the diversity in issues, which I have touched upon. One was also the geographical spread. And since we were not in the strategic integrated project, but just an integrated project, so we didn't have to have a full national coverage. This is the Northern Baltic Sea district. You can see on the small map, it's the smallest river basin district in Sweden, but it's also the most heavily populated area with the capital Stockholm. But we wanted to have our project represented in all parts of this district. So that geographical spread was also an important principle. And then this mix of implementing partners to sort of represent all stakeholders. Yes, we can have next slide. Yeah, these are just some examples of the concrete measures that we have implemented. So you can read much more about that on our website if you're interested. But let's move to lessons learned. Next slide. So these are just for your benefit, some of the lessons learned that we have learned the hard way. But in having a lot of different partners in the consortium, we're still figuring out sort of the division of responsibilities between the project management team and the partner organizations. And of course, it would have been easier if this was in place from the beginning. We also realized that the after-life planning was not thought through thoroughly from the beginning. And this leaves us in the end trying to find sort of homes for some of our results. So that could have been done better. Also something about milestones and deliverables, which you will have to include in your application. Some of them that we included were not super relevant from the beginning. So just to think from the beginning, who will use these deliverables? I see that we don't have a lot of time left, so maybe we will leave the rest of the time for questions. I don't know, Chincha.
Yes, indeed. We have a number of questions to reply. Thank you very much. And I think this was already a good start for a possible applicant. Thank you for sharing this.
Yes.
And we can open the floor for questions, Giulia.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much to these 3 very strategic speakers. So let's shoot the question from Slido on the screen so that we can take the time to answer as many as we can. And the first one, I'll start reading and you tell me what will reply. Strategies are submitted to EC in national language. Why do you encourage strategic integrated project prepared in English? Preparation of strategic project in English limits the involvement of stakeholders.
Thank you, Julia. This is a relevant question. We do have the possibility to submit the project in all languages. We do require, nevertheless, to have a certain part of the application in English, and we remind the applicant that also our document will be in English. So for the ease of cooperation, the preferred language is the English one. This is why. And the limiting of the partner, well, if the coordinator beneficiary can act as a filter, then this will be an important support for the partner that the coordination beneficiary will manage, because we will have this open line with the coordinator. And so we would thank you for this.
Thanks very much, Cynthia. So the next one is strategic integrated project is meant only to government level?
I
Laura?
can take it. Yeah. No, they can be also strategies or plans that are, for instance, developed by industries. If you see in the call proposal related, for instance, to the part on climate action, one area of the eligible plans are those roadmaps or plans developed by industries. So it's not only meant for government.
Okay, let's continue seeing the question there. And we have the, let's keep the screen with the question because that helps us to be faster. So what are the most common EU fundings for complementary actions? If such don't exist, do you have recommendation which EU programs could fit for that purpose? Cinzia?
Yes, we cannot specifically tell you which program because it depends on your specific target plan or strategy. So what does address air, water, circular economy, and depending on that, you have several EU funding programs. But for example, Horizon Europe, it's already complementary funds that we can accept and for which we can search complementarity, for example, for a study that highlight some gaps or how to overcome them.
Thank you very much, Cinzia. Next is for Laura. So for how many phases should, for example, an 8-year project be divided into 3 + 3 + 2, 4 + 4 years, or something else? Laura?
It's up to the applicant to decide the number of phases. It really depends how do you foresee the running of the activities. The phases are an element of flexibility of the strategic project, so it helps also to replan, review your work. So this is really up to the applicants to decide.
Thank you very much. I'll start reading the next one. So most of the Life IP projects are coordinated by public bodies. Is this an obligation or a private body can also become coordinator of a Life IP project? Cinzia?
Yes, I just saw that Rosita would want to complement with the question before, so I would give her shortly the floor.
Of course.
No, just to add that the phase amendments have been really important for us because in such a long period, a lot of things happen both politically and in the environment. So it's been very important for us to have these phase amendments. So I think for us, 3 years has been good period.
Thank you. And I answered this question, Julia. So yes, we prefer public bodies because they are normally the subject which is the coordinator of the strategy of the action plan. We really do not see just public body as coordinator, but really the body implementing the strategy of the plan. So for example, for industry, we see in the case that Laura mentioned, we also can accept industry. If the coordinator beneficiary is not the body implementing the strategy or the action plan, then we need a very good justification why this is not the case, because through our project we want to remove also administrative barrier, and this is why we need the implementing body as coordinator to improve their capacity building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cynthia. I don't know if we will manage to answer all, but so do you recommend that we contact the Life National Focal Point in order to inform about our idea and maybe get some guidance if needed? Yes is the answer, right, ladies?
Yes, yes.
And you find all their contacts online on the Life website. And then I give the floor back to you for this question. How is a strategy or plan defined? Should it be a document approved by a national, regional, or local authority?
Yes, so we have a list of plans in the call for proposal that we accept as eligible. They should be approved by national, regional, local authority, yes, or by industry if it's for the climate plans roadmaps.
And they are normally coming up from European legislation. So if this is the case, they should also have the approval of the European body in charge of it.
Thank you very much.
Submitting the proposal.
Yes. So let me, yeah, there is an interesting question from Anke and Fisher. I guess they want to know about how we evaluate the project. So could you share some information on the jury that is reviewing the application? Who wants to take this one, Laura?
Yes. It's the same format than for the other type of life projects. So we have external experts that are independent. They don't communicate with each other, so they work in a separately. And then there is CINEA, so us, who we are following, moderating, and coordinating the evaluation process.
Thank you. We are already at 2:30. I can guarantee that there will be a publication of a snap call next year. Yes. Is there any of these questions that you would absolutely like to take for the?
Yes, maybe change from stage 1 to stage 2.
Yes, thank you. And for the others, remember there will be a dedicated session for extra question on Tuesday. So if you like those questions, you can vote for them and we will find them again tomorrow. So let's just take this one on stage 1 and stage 2. Thanks.
Stage 1, stage 2, yes, you can change partners as well. You can change also other things like actions, but you have to justify. This should be well justified and to present your justification at stage 2.
Yes, which is also the good justification is actually what accompanies every type of modification within a life project, I would say, for experience. For the remaining question, we don't have time to answer now, but we might still be able to reply you privately and also to answer them tomorrow. I would really like to thank the speaker of this session. Please take 2 seconds of time, you as participants, to rate this session so that we can know how useful it was for you.